Now it's time for today's perspective, and it's being called the lost music of Auschwitz. This is music that was actually composed by prisoners there under the Nazi regime, many of whom, well, we assume, did not make it back out. The music found by a British composer, Leo Geyer, and it's being heard once again thanks to his painstaking work and his will to bring the music alive again. I'm going to talk to him in just a moment, but first let's watch the trailer for a new television programme which follows his quest.
I thought hell is here and they're making music. Why?
There is music that was made in Auschwitz, and what I have done is recompose the missing gaps with musical detective work. We can finally hear this music for the first time in 80 years.
And I interpreted that music, that there is perhaps beauty in the world.
The lost music of Auschwitz.
Well, Leo Geyer joins us now on the programme. Thanks very much for joining us. I mean, tell us, first of all, got a little hint of it there in the trailer, how you came across this music.
Well, basically, it was by accident. I was in Auschwitz on a research trip. I'd been commissioned to write a piece in memory of Sir Martin Gilbert, the Holocaust historian. And I had a chance conversation with one of the archivists who mentioned in a somewhat offhand way that there was some music manuscript buried in the depths of the archive. And I couldn't believe that such a thing existed. And so I went to look and discover more. And it transpired that the music was in a very poor state. Almost all of the manuscripts were incomplete, in faded pencil, in many cases with burnt edges or ripped corners. So to be able to piece this together, to actually get back to the music, required quite considerable music detective work, which has taken me the best part of 10 years.
I was going to say, I mean, this is not something that happened just a couple of weeks ago, is it? It's like 10 years of your life that you've partly dedicated to this.
Yes, absolutely. And it's formed the basis of my doctorate at Oxford University and has also spilled over into not over this documentary, but also an opera ballet production, series of concerts. And I just want to make sure that the public have the opportunity to hear this music, in many cases for the first time in 80 years, and hopefully also provide a new way in which to engage with the Holocaust and to commemorate the many millions, not just in Auschwitz, but in the Holocaust more widely, who unfortunately perished.
So what was this music? Why was it composed in the first place? Who was it performed for?
So across Auschwitz, there were at least 6 orchestras. Some have even argued could have been as many as 12. And these orchestras were formed by prisoners commissioned by the SS, and principally their role was to play marching music, which would enable prisoners to march out to fields and factories. And tragically, many people saw the orchestras actually as being part of the infrastructure of the camp. However, the stories told within the manuscripts themselves tell a very different picture, which is that the musicians took incredible risks to make brazen acts of rebellion. So, for example, when good news of the war reached the men's orchestra in Auschwitz I, they would perform marches not by German composers, but by American composers, and would also weave in melodies from Polish national identity, such as St. Mary's Trumpet Call. We also know of secret performances which took place, which would principally encompass Polish music, but we also know Jewish music was performed as well. So the music had a very wide-ranging role in Auschwitz, essentially for both good and evil.
And it's incredible, isn't it, that those rebellions, mini rebellions perhaps, were going on, you know, right under the eyes of the Nazis.
Indeed, yes, and particularly when you think actually how obvious some of them were. And for example, when they were playing these American marches, the soldiers didn't pick up on this. They didn't know that the musicians were taking this brazen act. And also, I mean, it seems very surprising to think of musical performances that could be secret. Of course, music is noise. So the fact that these were able to happen is also in many ways very astonishing. But the musicians had a marginally better quality of life than some of the other prisoners, which did enable them to have some luxuries in terms of being able to express themselves and find some kind of solace in what many have described as hell on earth.
We have to assume, of course, that many of those who wrote this music, who composed this music, who played this music, didn't make it out again. I mean, how possible has it been to be able to piece together who wrote what and whether those people are still alive, or at least initially were still alive?
Yes, so this has been one of the great challenges because many of the manuscripts, as I mentioned, are incomplete, and that includes not including signatures. And in fact, one of the pieces that I looked at the very first trip was an unsigned and unfinished composition sketch, which very alarmingly to me at the time was that the handwriting was identical to mine. And so I felt it was my duty to finish this composition. But of course, the problem is that I didn't actually know who it was by. And eventually I managed to find another manuscript which appeared to be in the same handwriting as this unfinished sketch. And I was able to trace another manuscript in the Polish National Library and therefore trace the composer to Mieczysław Kaczynski. And he did actually survive Auschwitz. But unfortunately, he's no longer with us today. So I only hope that he would be pleased with what I did.
I mean, it's incredible, isn't it? We've been seeing some of the images of the orchestra playing some of those pieces of music. I mean, what was that like to bring them back to life again?
I mean, essentially beyond words. You might think that having done this research for the best part of 10 years, that I'd be in some way immune to the horrors, but I'm not. And the only way that myself and the others can express how we really feel is through music. And as you may notice from these clips, is that we are not reading music, and usually classical musicians, we read off scores, but it was a suggestion from the television production company that we should actually perform off copy. And I was very grateful for this, because rather than passively reading the music, we really embedded the music within ourselves, which I think enabled us to perform in a way that we wouldn't be able to otherwise, to really pour our heart and soul into our musical performances. And so it was incredibly special, particularly as some of these performances were indeed in Auschwitz itself.
I'd love to ask a little bit about yourself as well. I mean, why did it become such a passion for you to dedicate so much time to it? I mean, you didn't have any direct connection yourself beforehand to this story at all, did you?
No, so I'm not Jewish, Polish, Romani, or indeed descended from any other group or person who perished in Auschwitz. But I am human, and I feel that the Holocaust was the greatest tragedy that humanity unleashed upon itself. And I certainly don't want to live in a world where such horrors can rise again. So if there's anything that I can do to prevent it, then I'll do it.
Well, look, it looks like you've made a fantastic effort towards doing just that. Thank you ever so much for joining us on the programme today. Leo Geyer joining us. The lost music of Auschwitz on Perspective today. Thanks very much.